Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Kickback Comics. My name is Antonio.
My name is Ben, and you guys are listening to a comic book podcast.
Yes, by two guys who have not read a lot of comics, but are looking to get involved, looking to read some stuff, look at some great drawings, pictures, etc. And that'll be good.
Yeah. Yep. This is our new hobby. Hopefully some of you guys are along for the ride. We're doing a book club. We're hanging out. We're talking about comic books.
And we're having a good time.
We're having a good time.
Exactly.
That's what's most important.
And you know what we're talking about this week, Ben?
We're talking about Watchmen.
We're talking about Watchmen chapters 4 through 6.
Yeah, no doubt. We did the first 3 in our first Watchmen episode. We're sort of going, makes sense to be going 3 chapters at a time through all these books that we're reading. And that's what we're going to continue to do. Yes,
that's what we're doing today. And this was a crazy set of chapters. I'm not going to lie to you, brother.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's sort of, you know, I said this earlier, but it's really difficult for us to not have these conversations off mic, like while I'm setting everything up. I'm like rushing to get it set up.
Because I won't stop bringing up stuff.
Well, and literally. Well, it's the same for me, bro. Like as I've been reading it, I want to text you and whatever, and this shit just went down, and Antonio, you know, he just pulled up something on Wikipedia that he was thinking of earlier, and he literally started to tell me this like super fascinating thing. I was like, shut up, let's get the mics going.
Yeah, it was good. But so we are on chapter 4 for the beginning of this episode.
Yeah,
Watchmaker.
Yep. Read our little summary, Antonio, off the dossier.
Watchmaker here, this chapter 4, basically this chapter is all about the backstory of Dr. Manhattan. All of these 3, actually maybe not 3, but 2 of them at least, are all about backstories. And so this first one is about the backstory of Dr. Manhattan. As of the last chapter, basically, he's alone on Mars. He jumped away from all of Earth, all those things. The Russians are attacking now. But basically, he's reflecting on his life. But the interesting thing about this chapter is that he experiences time all at the same time, which is an interesting sentence to say. And so the story is kind of constantly jumping around back and forth between now and the past, and sometimes kind of the future and whatever else. But during this chapter, we see him as a kid learning watchmaking from his father. Then we see the lab accident that destroys his body and basically eventually reassembles him into Dr. Manhattan. There are scenes with his ex-girlfriend Janie, stuff about his time in Vietnam with the comedian, which is kind of crazy. And then kind of his emotional drift away and his apathy that's basically made him just an entirely different being in comparison to humanity. But he's still holding on to, and we see kind of in both the beginning and end of this chapter, he's holding on to this photo of Janie, and then that's where the chapter begins and ends with him sitting on Mars, staring at that image, trying to make sense of everything that's going on. So tell me, Ben, what did you think of this whole thing?
This chapter is so good. I mean, I was blown away the first time I read it. I was blown away reading it again now. It's just crazy. It's wild how, you know, Alan Moore does such a good job of having the narrative jump through time and also be something we can follow.
Yep, absolutely.
Like it's actually, like, it's obviously very disorienting and strange. Like,
or at least it could be.
Right.
And then it ends up being like, okay,
right.
I'm kind of getting what's going on right now. Yeah.
But it also, I mean, it's trying, you know, in its form, right? It's trying to have us understand a little bit of what just living existence is for Dr. Manhattan.
Right. And I feel like that's another, like, I think a really, really great thing about, as you were saying, like the writing in this, right, is that like, it's about, and we've talked about this actually, you and I have talked about this like off the podcast about games and different things like that, but it's like, how do you make this medium feel like the experience that you're talking about, right? And so you really get that feeling of what Dr. Manhattan is experiencing jumping around in time.
It's also short. I mean, let me look at how many pages it is right now. So not including the little whole discourse at the end, this is 28 pages of mostly pictures. Wow. And we understand like this whole little profound snapshot of this man's life.
Yeah, right. Yeah, to get that all done in 28 pages is pretty dang impressive.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. Like, let's run through the chapter in a little bit more.
Yeah. So this
detail.
starts, since it's called Watchmaker, this chapter starts with seeing young Dr. Manhattan
as a human, not
as
a blue
human.
guy.
John. Young John, basically working on a watch. That's something that he was trained to do by his father. And then his father basically walks in with a copy of the paper that shows the atomic bomb being dropped on Hiroshima. And he says, "No more watches for you, sir. You're done."
Yeah. He literally throws the idea is that this is no longer an age of watches. Like this is the nuclear age. My son better be a nuclear scientist. That's the future. He literally throws the watch that his son is working on and yeets it out the window. And then you can see John, one of the iconic images is the little tiny pieces of clockwork also representing time. Right,
yeah,
falling. It's like pieces of the clock.
Crazy metaphors on metaphors on metaphors.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's actually the dialogue or not even the dialogue, but the text boxes.
Yeah,
read it. At the bottom there, just like the time stuff where it's like 40 years ago, cogs ran on Brooklyn. 115 minutes into the future, the meteorites hailed down through the rarefied atmosphere. Is that rare? Yeah, rarefied atmosphere. Rarefied. Excuse me. Rarefied atmosphere on Mars. It is 1948, and I'm arriving at Princeton University. It is 9:58, and I'm graduating with a PhD in atomic physics. The cogs are falling.
The cogs are falling.
And so that's 3 panels that I just talked about. And we've jumped through past, future.
Yeah, that's such a good illustration of what we're trying to talk about, Antonio. So that it's like time is not just jumping around throughout the chapter. Yep. It's like moment to moment.
Back to our pillars or whatever it is that we call them.
Yeah. Our core concepts.
Yeah, core concepts. There it is.
Yes, understanding comics. Hey, and look at us now, understanding
comics. Pretty incredible. Yeah,
it's crazy.
And so we get this first bit about him building watches, and then we, he talks about graduating with his PhD in, was it physics that he said it was?
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah, and atomic physics in particular.
Yep.
Now he's a scientist. He's working for this lab. I think is he already working for the government, or is he just?
It's not. Yeah, exactly. It's like a document. It's like a
pre.
Yeah, I mean, the atomic bomb has already been developed, obviously. Like his name, Dr. Manhattan, is like a reference to that to try to freak out the Soviets. To remind, like every time everyone says his name, they're supposed to think about nukes, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Is like the branding that America wants, is why we call him Dr. Manhattan. But it is kind of the Manhattan Project. He's sort of like another Oppenheimer-like figure on an Oppenheimer-like team where they're testing the boundaries of what we can do with nukes.
Right, exactly. And speaking of that team, he meets this woman, Janie. Janie
falls in love with this woman who is part of that like government facility he's working at. We see them visiting Coney Island. She has a watch. Someone bumps into them on Coney Island, breaks the watch.
And John's like, wait a minute.
I'm going to fix it?
Wait a minute. Yeah. And he says, I'll fix that, right? And then what ends up happening is that he fixes the watch. And then they go to work one of these days, and they're doing some stuff in this
testing. There's like a crazy test chamber. He goes, "Oh, I fixed that watch for you. Let me go grab it."
And she's like, "Where is it?" And John's like, I left it in that super, super dangerous test chamber. Let me go grab that real quick.
Yeah, this is his like falling in the vat of acid origin moment. But yeah, and basically he gets trapped in this room. The other scientists are like, bro, we cannot open that door. You're cooked.
Yeah.
And they watch it. And then Janie runs out the room. He's like, Janie, stop. I need you. She kind of abandons him low-key.
Yeah,
she runs out the room.
Low-key.
Anyways, he explodes. We see his whole body completely disintegrate. Yeah. It's very graphic. We see his skeleton, everything. But then again, what's kind of dope is it's his attention to fine detail, his ability to deconstruct and reconstruct watches and find piece. He basically over time rebuilds his entire human anatomy.
It's pretty wild. I forgot that he kind of like builds his nerve structure first. He's like got like a brain, and then he's got all his nerves, and then he builds a skeleton out. It's like
it's very spooky.
Yeah, it's like reassembling, and this is where the watchmaking comes in. Really, it's just a question. This is a quote. Really, it's just a question of reassembling the components in the correct sequence. And you see the image of him working on watches as a youth, and then they're in the cafeteria and they're talking like, "Wow, it's so crazy. We want to quit. It's haunting." And then they're like, "What's going on?" And all this light and craziness flashes. Then boom, Dr. Manhattan.
And that's like it is like a Jesus figure moment. It's like this like perfect naked blue man appearing, levitating,
floating.
Yeah. And they Janie clocks it immediately. She's seen that dong before. She knows this.
She knows who this is.
She knows who this is. Yeah, no, but giant blue naked man appears before their eyes, and that's the birth of Dr. Manhattan. And then we just see, we see how insane it is, his existence, trying to relate to people, trying to still explain that he's still John, but also he knows everything.
Everything has changed. And then Janie ends up being like kind of like scared of him. And what's crazy about this moment, like there's this moment where they're experiencing Christmas together, and she's kind of like, I'm scared. And he's like, of me? And she's like, no, yes, it's crazy. Everything's changed. This is all crazy. And then this is like one of the wildest moments for me is that she's like, I don't even know if you're going to like always want me. And he's like, Janie, I'll always want you. Because he's Dr. Manhattan, he knows
that he won't.
And that's not true. And he says that shit anyway. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's a flawed man.
He's all of us. He's a flawed super being, which is even crazier, right?
Yeah, more than a man. A superman, you could say.
You could say that. And then we basically, we go forward and he's basically the US government is finding a way to kind of like show him off for the first time. So the next part here is that we basically get into the U.S. government basically trying to brand him. And actually, that's kind of what's funny about me saying that is that they're trying to like brand him as something that they can, scare the world with. And then he literally like basically brands something on his forehead. Like they're like, we need to like come up with something that like, shows like who you are. And they're like putting a symbol on like a helmet for him. And then he's like, I don't want to wear the helmet. I'm just going to blow like a symbol into my forehead. And that's just what it's going to be.
It is funny too, seeing him in costume here, because for the vast, like the way we see him in the first 3 chapters, he's literally most of the time he's naked or he's just wearing like he's wearing underwear basically.
Basically.
Which is as part of the thing, he's beyond clothes. He's like, what's going on?
And it's super interesting when they start showing, because they're like, oh, in this crazy announcement there's a this is like the quote. Yeah, we repeat, the Superman exists and he's American. Right.
Very important.
And then and then they basically show all these things where it's like he can disassemble guns and blow up a tank with the point of his finger, and then all the other like it's great that they got this other thing of like the vigilantes where they're like, hey, how do you guys feel like this? And they're like,
right, you got all these fucking dorks in their costumes, spandex, and then they bring him to the meeting. It's like Captain Metropolis, and then they're just guy.
Like, yeah, dude, it's great or whatever. It's really, really cool, and we're so excited to work with him because we're sure that we are even remotely kind of not really on the same level at all.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we see. The narrative continues. We see him doing some basic superhero stuff, going into a superhero den, blowing up a guy's head. Oh, we see young Moloch or whatever that guy's name is, the one who's like the old
the
nemesis.
old guy that we see later on. Yeah.
Yep. Who's like suffering from cancer, sort of reformed guy. We see him shaking John Kennedy's hand in 1961.
Right. And then we see him talking to Hollis Mason, which is pretty. We got an excerpt of his book earlier, and this is the original Owl Boy, right?
OG Night Owl. He's the one that sort of represents like also like old like American idealism. Like he's like the corn-fed, aspired to be a policeman, car mechanic.
He's talking about General Motors. He's like, you can't even affect General Motors, and then. Yeah, that's actually a great sequence where he's like, it'll be a while before you can affect like cars and things like that. And then Dr. Manhattan's like, well,
don't worry about cars.
There's the electric cars.
Yeah.
And then he's like, the what?
Yeah.
Which is great.
It's all about, he just symbolizes the obsolescence of man. And what they had going on before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Hollis Mason says, with someone like you around, the whole situation changes. You can do anything. All I have to offer is a good left hook.
Yep, exactly. And that's really what the change is. And so we end up getting that conversation. Then we see some more kind of like back and forth between Janie and John, and things are just...
The assassination of JFK. President shot.
And then, it's interesting. This is a moment where Dr. Manhattan says, basically she's kind of angry at him for like not stopping it from happening. And he's like, I can't prevent the future. He's like, I just already know what it is. Like, it's not that I can go change it. I'm just like, that's already happening now to me. Like
that's sort of, that's his one weakness or whatever. Like we're talking about, superheroes have like Superman has kryptonite or whatever. Mm-hmm. Dr. Manhattan's kryptonite is just sort of like paralysis in that. Yeah, like it's difficult for him to understand what he can change and what he can't because he's experiencing the future. It's like that reminds us of that same moment where the comedian kills that woman in front of him.
Yep.
And he goes, "Oh, stop." Like he says that he's horrified watching it. He says, "What are you doing?" But then he doesn't do anything. And the comedian calls him out on it. He says, "Bro, you could have stopped me. You could have turned the gun into snowflakes. Like you could have... There's no need. You just stood by and watched. Like, what are you doing?" And Dr. Manhattan doesn't really have a response. This guy is, he's just, again, we'll now go into the another big part of this whole little chapter is his affair with the very young, like
Lori.
Yeah,
his now girlfriend, or I guess kind of ex at this point.
But again, that's the same thing. Like, I mean, let's set up the whole Lori dynamic for our listeners. But it's the same analogy where he's saying, "Oh, I couldn't have stopped JFK because to me." It's the future happened. And it's happened. Same thing with his infidelity or whatever.
Right.
He's like, oh, well, I can't.
What am I going to do?
It's the future for me right now. And I already had sex with her 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, it's like, they go, there's this, it's kind of this interesting moment first where he's like talking to Janie. She's upset with him. And then he's like, hey, here are these earrings. And she's like, did you know that this was going to make me feel better? And he's like, maybe, I don't know. And then they end up going to this meeting of all of the
superheroes.
Superheroes, vigilantes, superhero and friends.
And we see the comedian, we see Captain Metropolis, we see Ozymandias, and then we see Rorschach and Night Owl 2.0. Yeah. So now, like, our whole core cast is there. Look, this is the current gen. It's Dr. Manhattan. The only one is...
And most importantly, Lori is there.
Right. And Lori's there. She's the new Silk Spectre. She's super young. She's like, what?
She's like 16. Yeah. And then what's even crazier is, like, they're walking around, and then Janie's like, bro, I see you. She's like, I hate you, and I see you, what you're doing. Let's leave.
Well, what's crazy about it is he looks over, like Dr. Manhattan in this one panel looks over at Lori. He sees her for the first time. He says, a very young girl sits to my right. She looks at me and smiles. The very next panel is them having sex. And he says, in 1985, my hands are encircling her face. In 1966, the costumed people are arguing. Janie is tugging at my arm. What's the matter? You're staring at that girl. So it is this weird conundrum that we see where obviously, like, in certain ways, Dr. Manhattan is like being a dick. He's being inappropriate. He's making advances on a kid, but also it's like, how bizarre for this guy. He's seen her for the first time and immediately he's just like, oh,
he's like, I already know what this is. Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's like the weird thing. Cause it's like in this chapter, we get that he's like an all powerful being, but also like not powerful at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, he kind of knows that he probably even knows that like he was supposed to happen. And I mean, I wonder how far, as far as we know, he can see as far as he wants to. Right. And I don't know what that really means, but pretty wild. Yeah. So they end up leaving. Yeah. Janie's like, let's leave. I hate you. And then they leave. And that's when Dr. Manhattan basically later on starts hanging out with Lori. They're like partners. And then Janie obviously finds out and she's like, you pig, you disgusting freak. I wrote in my notes. I was telling Ben about this. I wrote in my notes. I said, this dude really went after a 16-year-old when he was at least 30 and knew he was going to do it. And he lied to his girlfriend before that.
Yep, sure did.
Crazy. So we get this kind of breakdown. She ends up leaving. Yeah. And again, we get these kind of like times jumping around where it's 1959. Janie is handing me the glass. It's 1966 and she's packing, tearful, careless with anger. The photograph lies in the sand at my feet. Right. So we get super past that moment that we're kind of experiencing in the chapter right now, and then him experiencing the photograph in the sand then.
We see him in Vietnam with the comedian and the woman that we see like a Vietnamese girl with her arms around the comedian. We can assume that's the
woman that he ends up killing. And you get these serious panels here where you're like, I think, this is where Dr. Manhattan says, Blake is interesting. I've never met anyone so deliberately amoral. Right. Yeah. And I even wrote that in my notes because it's just like that. I mean, the guy who's like apathetic to human experience is like, yo, this guy's crazy.
We should mark this because in the next chapter, not to jump ahead, but Rorschach also has a specific thing where he says something about, he talks about the comedian specifically, or did this already happen? There's another part where Rorschach talks about his opinion on the comedian, and he says that basically the same thing where he's like, the comedian is like, he sees the world for what it is. He knows the truth, and the way he deals with it is going crazy. I think we talked about that last episode. But we literally see him gleefully flame throwing.
I might even read
it out.
Yeah, this is like just such good. Yeah, he suits the climate here, the madness, the pointless butchery. As I come to understand Vietnam and what it implies about the human condition, I also realize that few humans will permit themselves such an understanding. Blake's different. He understands perfectly, and he doesn't care.
And that's a close-up on his grinning face, watching people melt.
Gruesome.
And then this is another one of those like panel things, going back to Scott McCloud. They know that we're about to turn the page and, be struck with whatever the next thing is. So from like a cinematic, if this is a movie, we cut from this close-up of Blake's face watching people burn, and then we jump to a literal like 200-foot Dr. Manhattan just pointing, like, it's insane. We've never really realized that he can just become skyscraper sized. Yep. And there's like, it's such a beautiful panel too. The background, the skies are like deep purples and blues. There's, badass Vietnam helicopters flying all around him. He's just pointing down at like these fleeing people running in front of him. Everything's exploding. The trees are on fire. It's just crazy imagery.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you make there about like, I mean, maybe there's probably some other reasoning to why they ended up choosing like blue that maybe I just don't know. But it's like blue in general is like a more kind of like calm, cool color. And you get this really, like you said, like beautiful juxtaposition between like this gigantic, like, I mean, apathetic, but should be kind of like above this being. Right. That's just like blowing up the world below him.
Dude, maybe this is, maybe part of what Alan Moore is getting at or wanting us to think about is it's like, a lot of this is like human condition. It's like exactly what you said, war. It's like, what? Like, what's going on? Yeah. How are we doing this to each other? He's also like, he's kind of a stand-in for like God or a God-like figure, right? And we talk about that, that's a classic like philosophical, if God's real, how come, if God's like this nice guy, why do we have war? Where's God during that? Whatever.
Right, yeah.
And that's like what you're saying. Here's this like, there he is. He's present.
Right, and it's
giant and blue.
Pretty insane. And so then we get this kind of like interesting jump out of Vietnam to actually like, before it even ends that, he kind of like references seeing the comedian, pulling his gun from his holster, ready to shoot the pregnant Vietnamese woman. And then we jump away to this moment where Ozymandias, one of the other vigilantes, has quit. They're kind of at his like big crazy layer. What's kind of wild to me is that they talk about eugenics like very regularly, like in this moment. And like, I mean, they're referring to it like in the context of like animals and like breeding specific like pets, at least in this moment. That's a pretty crazy thing to bring up in general.
Yeah. Ozymandias is this interesting figure, right? Like we're about to see some more of him, but this is when the what was the act? The Keynes Act. Is that what it's called? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
So basically when the government shut down vigilantes, superheroes, they had the option, you either, come work for the government and keep your secret identity, reveal yourself, whatever. That's when Night Owl retired. Adrian Veidt is one of the guys who, when he eventually retired, he decided to reveal his identity. So that's like, he sells action figures of himself.
Right.
He's the one we saw Rorschach was talking to him earlier. He's the smartest man in the world. Yep. In theory. Yeah. So we see him hanging out. Laurie is snuggling this like crazy tiger cat hybrid thing that he's apparently made with eugenics. Interesting. He's just an interesting figure.
Yeah, he's an interesting figure in this. And then we get this, I mean, this is another crazy scene that stood out to me. We get this other moment where Dr. Manhattan's kind of remembering
breaking up the protest.
Breaking up like a protest. Right. And there's this moment where it's literally like he like cares but he doesn't care, and they're like saying that he's freaking. He's like, below me, all this stuff is going on. I better do something. And then he just says, pay attention. You will all return to your homes. And then they're like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? You big blue, like, they call him a fruit.
Yeah, you big blue fruit.
And then he says, you misunderstand me. It was not a request. And then he literally just teleports like 200 people immediately all into their separate homes. And
he's floating in front of the White House, bro.
Right. And then basically he ends up basically reading that 2 people suffered heart attacks upon being sent there. And then he basically ends up saying like, I'm certain that the casualties would have been worse had they stayed. So,
and he's probably right.
Maybe. We'll never know because he teleported them out of there.
It's crazy.
But pretty wild. So yeah, then we get the Keene Act. Everything's illegal. Everybody has to start packing up their stuff. The only other, this is kind of an interesting moment, but basically the only other active vigilante is Rorschach, and they don't know who he is at this point in time. He expresses his feelings towards compulsory retirement in a note left outside police headquarters along with a dead multiple rapist. So he says...
Right, yeah, up here it says, August 3rd, 1977, the emergency bill proposed by Senator Keene has been passed. Vigilantism is now illegal again, as it was before. They altered the laws to accommodate strategically useful talents, such as myself. So then you can see Blake is also exempt since he too works entirely for the government. That's like the comedian in his like Captain America GIMP outfit or whatever.
Yep.
The new Night Owl has stated that he will be retiring, although he will not be making his identity public. Laurie's met him several times. She says his name is Drydenberg. Obviously, we know Dan from the first few chapters. And then, then like you said, Rorschach is not retiring, and he is like, not only am I not retiring, I'm cleaning up these streets.
Yeah, I'm actively active. And then so the rest of the chapter is really just kind of like a bunch of like jumping, like you kind of like almost get another recap of the entirety of the chapter. It just jumps around between now and the past, and then kind of like just now past all the way back to when he's like looking at these things related to watches. He's looking at the moment when he met Janie, jumps back to the moment that he and Laurie are first connecting, and then it jumps forward to when Laurie is finally leaving, when she gets upset with him later on, and then jumping to the point where he gets accused of basically killing people. This was what happened in our last episode in chapter 3. But basically, this guy comes into the interview that he's in before he leaves to Mars and is like, "You're causing cancer in the people that you love. Did you know that?" And then he gets upset and he leaves.
Freaks out, yeah.
But then we get this kind of jumping all around, and then he finds the frame of him and Janie before he teleports, and then he's back on Mars. And we get these.
This ending part I feel like is worth us reading too, because it encapsulates all the stuff that we've been talking about. Right?
Read it, brother.
He says I'll start here, I guess. He says, "I am tired of this world, these people. I'm tired of being caught in the tangle of their lives. In Arizona, I'm entering the ruined bar with a sensation of deja vu, and I'm taking the snapshot from its broken frame, and I'm gone." Now he's on Mars. Gone to Mars. Gone to a place without clocks, without seasons, without hourglasses, to trap the shifting pink sands. Below me in the sand, the secret shade of my creation is concealed, buried in the sand's future. I rise into thin air, and I am ready to begin. And then you see him, he's like manifesting this huge clockwork like
yes, and that's
structure.
True, it is clockwork like
and he says, "A world grows up around me. I am shaping it, or do its predetermined contours guide my hand? In 1945, the bombs are falling on Japan. The cogs are falling on Brooklyn. Seeds of the future sown carelessly. Without me, things would have been different." He's talking about the fat man who crushed Janie's watch, which caused him to go into the chamber, right? He says, "If the fat man hadn't crushed the watch, if I hadn't left it in the test chamber, and am I to blame then, or the fat man, or my father for choosing my career? Which of us is responsible? Who made the world? Perhaps the world is not made. Perhaps nothing is made. Perhaps it simply is, has been, will always be there, a clock without a craftsman. I am standing on a balcony of pink sand hardened into glass. It glitters in the 10-minute-old sunshine. The light of 2 hours past will just be reaching Pluto. If they have strong telescopes, then they can see me. The photograph in my hand is falling, lying in the sand at my feet. I am standing on a fire escape in 1945, reaching out to stop my father. Take the cogs and flywheels from him, piece them all together again. But it's too late. It always has been, always will be too late. Above the Notice Gordi Mountains, jewels in the makerless mechanism, the first meteorites are starting to fall."
Yeah, poetry. Also, one real quick thing before we read this last bit of this chapter thing. Funny thing that I actually realized is that it's interesting that the kind of the catalyst for a lot of this stuff is this like fat man breaking the watch or whatever else. Right. Did you know that the fat man is the name of the bomb that is dropped on, like that's the name of the nuclear bomb.
Oh my God. Bro.
Right? Isn't that pretty cool?
You're absolutely right.
Again, great writing. Writing.
Bro, what? You just blew my mind with that.
There you go.
That's crazy. I think you're right. And then what? It's like Fat Man and like Little Boy or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that, right?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And so
you're a genius. Alan Moore is a genius.
Yeah, Alan Moore is a genius. And so the last thing that we get in this chapter, at least of this piece here, before we get this kind of like real breakdown of Dr. Manhattan, is this quote from Albert Einstein: "The release of atom power has changed everything except our way of thinking. The solution to this problem lies in the heart of mankind. If only I had known, I should have become a watchmaker." And so maybe this is what this chapter comes from, right? And he says, this is kind of like how Dr. Manhattan is feeling. He's like, dang, if I had just been a watchmaker, maybe none of this stuff would have happened.
Wow.
But here we are.
He's like reverse Einstein. or now Einstein is. And again, Einstein is the theory of relativity and time, right? Which, bro. Exactly.
And so we end this chapter with kind of like another, this is kind of like a, who is it that ends up writing this? This is, I don't know if we know exactly.
It's like a physicist or something,
yeah,
right?
some physicist who's basically writing about Dr. Manhattan. And basically,
does it say?
He explains kind of how he comes about, talks about his, Dr. Let's see, Dr. Jonathan Osterman, I believe, is the one.
Professor Milton Glass. Here it says Milton Glass, Dr. Manhattan superpowers and the Dr. Manhattan superpowers and the superpowers. Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. And so basically this whole little like last excerpt is about the geopolitical situation that is influenced by Dr. Manhattan, and basically saying like the U.S. In this Cold War situation got Dr. Manhattan and was basically just like, nobody's going to do anything. We run the world. You guys like don't even make a move. Russia's like, all right, we're not going to do anything. And then Dr. Manhattan leaves, and everybody's like, uh-oh, now it's getting real. And then Russia ends up, they invade Afghanistan.
Russia invades Afghanistan. Yep. That's literally within hours of Dr. Manhattan teleporting away.
And he talks about just like how, there was this other quote that was pretty interesting about the Soviets, which was basically just like they won't. He said the author basically said that the Soviets would blow up the world if it stopped them from being conquered, and Dr. Manhattan would only be able to stop 60% of the warheads.
Right.
Which is an interesting view on that whole situation. But so, Dr. Manhattan, pretty wild guy, pretty pivotal guy in the geopolitical sense of this world that we're living in.
Man. I'm honestly like, I'm kind of like stunned into silence again, just recapping that chapter, bro.
Pretty unbelievable.
And this wasn't even the one that I was most excited for us to talk about. It feels like it only gets better from here, bro.
I know, so crazy. We'll be back.
We're going to take a break. We're going to take a short break and return.
That we will.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, what an unbelievable chapter. So now we dive into chapter 5, which is entitled Fearful Symmetry.
Fearful Symmetry, baby.
Yes, indeed. And so
what do we know that's
this
a fearful
chapter?
Symmetry?
Yeah, this chapter is basically built around this interesting kind of like mirrored back and forth. The panels literally reflect themselves from front to back. This is another show of the I cannot remember the name of that dang pirate comic right now, but we're jumping back and forth between the story that's happening and the pirate comic. It's called the Black something. I can't remember what the heck it's called. Right. But anyway, long story short, in this time, Rorschach is starting to dig into this kind of conspiracy that's happening where people are coming after these vigilantes. He visits Moloch, who's this old enemy of all of them again, and finds him. First he visits him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's going on? Tell me about it." And then Moloch's like, I don't know what's going on. Please don't hurt me. Something crazy's, whatever else. Like, I don't know.
He comes back and finds him dead.
Yeah. And then
it's also sort of a setup. He gets arrested.
Yeah. He gets arrested. The cops are there and they're like, we got him. And then they eventually end up unmasking him, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Yeah. And so, otherwise, Lori moves out of the government housing that she was originally with Dr. Manhattan, since he's on Mars, and they're like, you got to get out of here. He's on literally a different planet.
Yeah.
But she ends up staying with Dan, good old Night Owl V2 Part 2. And the two of them start reconnecting, talking about their past, the good old days.
There's also an assassination attempt.
Yeah, on Adrian Veidt. Ozymandias, they come after him, and then we'll talk a little bit about that, but pretty crazy scene there.
And then, we wrap up with more of there's more of the pirate comic
at the newsstand. And then it ends with Rorschach in prison.
Bro, this is there's a lot to talk about here too. My favorite part of this is the opening, how eerie and spooky it is. It's another one of those just super badass. The washing the dryer is gonna make a whole song.
It's a good song. Hey. That's a long.
It literally. Every time you think it's done, it's got another bar. Okay,
that's pretty impressive. But yeah, the beginning of this,
a silent, super creepy amazing saturated panels of this guy getting back to his house in silence, and he can feel someone's there. He's terrified. You can see he's dying from cancer, so he looks really skeletal and weird. He gets a gun out,
and he's like,
he's
hello?
Creeping around.
Hello?
He knows someone's in there with him. He opens his fridge, finds a note in the fridge behind you, turns around, dun dun dun, chapter title, and you see his terrified face with Rorschach
in the back.
Yep, and the chapter title, Fearful Symmetry. Of course, Rorschach's face inkblot test is always symmetrical.
Yeah, I'd love to. I wonder if there's some kind of. We'll have to look this up. We'll talk about this some other time when I get a chance to look this up. But I wonder if I want to look up these patterns and see if there's anything that these are. Right. I mean, maybe there's a world that they're coming from something. I wouldn't put it past.
No.
These boys, I would not.
But it's crazy. I mean, it's what Antonio said in the summary. Basically, Rorschach is interrogating him for information. The thing that is, I think, the takeaway from this is that Rorschach is terrifying.
He's crazy, bro. He throws this dude in the fridge and is like, I'm going to crush you inside this thing. Tell me what's going on.
Right. He's basically torturing this guy.
Yep.
And,
not even basically. He's legitimately torturing
he's torturing this guy. He's torturing this guy. And also, this guy is a helpless, terrified, decrepit, cancer-ridden
old man.
Yeah, literally, who happened to be a villain in his youth.
Yeah.
And run gambling halls or whatever.
Yeah,
we don't even know what he did.
I think that literally is what ended. He was kind of a real villain to them originally, and then he was I'm doing high end stuff, making money off of people gambling.
He tried to go to the funeral. This guy's and this, whatever. Rorschach has been bullying this guy before, but this time it's over the top, and you see that's what's so, it's again one of these twisted reminders of while Rorschach is cool and we kind of can't help but root for him.
Yep.
He's just terrible. He's awful. His worldview is so stark that he is just clearly abusing this guy, and obviously absolutely. This is going to come back to haunt him, because to get the same information, he could just be talking to this guy. He could be, hey man, we got to get to the bottom of this. There's no need for him to be tortured. There's no need for this.
There's no need to be shoving people in fridges. They obviously can't fit.
The thing that's weird is part of it is you could read this as a power trip, him doing this to feel really powerful or whatever. Mm-hmm. The almost scary thing with Rorschach is that's not even my read. I don't think he's doing this just as a bully to feel big. I think this is just how things are just so black and white to him, and this is an evil guy, and evil
deserves to be squashed.
They deserve punishment.
Yeah.
He's just this is how he conducts himself, and it's nuts.
Yeah, he's a crazy guy. And so we get this moment where he ends up leaving, and he's basically just this guy does not know what's going on. He thinks that
Look, he knows. He says, I left Jacoby's house 2:35 a.m. He knows nothing about any attempt to discredit Dr. Manhattan. He has simply been used. It's dude, if your takeaway is that he's just being used, I mean, maybe that's his takeaway now after having...
Right, yeah, maybe, but
after having tortured him.
He probably kind of had that feeling already.
Right. Why are you shoving this man in a fridge?
Gotta do it to the evil. But yeah, interesting thing that we also get about his psyche and why maybe he's also so crazy is can't concentrate, too tired, no sleep since Saturday. Walked home past the trash cans, with rumors of war and different things like that. And then we get this interesting jump to the scene that I actually had almost forgotten about. But basically, there's the cops. And I think these are the same two cops maybe that we got from the beginning.
Right. The kind of they bumbling around in Edward Blake's house.
Right, exactly. And so, but the murder that they're investigating now is this guy. And it's interesting because it draws parallels into my mind of some of the stuff that happened with actually some of the QAnon people back when it was going on. But basically, this guy's afraid of nuclear war. And he kills, I think, his two kids.
Yeah, right? kills his family basically. Suicides and kills his
both
family.
of the kids in front of their mom, and then opened his jugular. Yeah, pretty unbelievably brutal stuff. And so they're talking to the mom, and it's interesting because it's in this house. There's also a poster of I think that's Buddha. Yeah, Buddha on the wall, which is obviously pretty stark contrast to what's going on.
The guy was worried about nuclear war, killed both his kids in front of their mom, and then opened his jugular. There's going to be more like this. It's basically just showing that the world is in such a crazy place. We're on the brink of, people feel like they're on the brink of annihilation, and it's driving people to be crazier and crazier. Which again, is what Antonio was saying. That mirrors now, bro. Yep. We all feel it. When things start to get hairy, when people do not feel secure. When
people get crazy. And we're going to talk actually a little bit about this, how some parallels I think that happen now with this next part of this chapter, where we jump to the newsstand, which is with this guy that we'd seen before, and then this kid that's reading the pirate comics. And so this is when we really get that kind of like jump back and forth between what's happening right now and then jumping to the pirate comics. And it opens with this really interesting thing that says, my home and family were doomed, my world reduced to ruin, fate had dealt its hand casually despite my bitter protestations. Which is, again, I think that this pirate comic is just so beautifully written. Like, it's just such like,
prose switches up. It's like it lets Alan write some old timey piratey sounding stuff. Yeah. But it's like it is its own narrative, but the symbology, SpongeBob.
Yeah.
The symbolism.
Right, is constantly there. And so the interesting thing...
And mirrors the real narrative. Is like the whole point of the pirate comic. It's like, the takeaway from the pirate situation is emblematic of what's going on in the...
And it's almost like... Because I feel like the idea is like you're trying to do like whatever you can against like impending doom that you like cannot escape. And that's
he just keeps having to do worse and worse and worse stuff to survive. Like basically what we see him doing is... This was the guy, remember before he was in this terrible shipwreck, all his crew got killed by pirates, whatever. He's like awash on this island. He had to bury everybody.
Then he has to dig them up.
That's what we see him do here. Is he realizes the only way out of here is he has to get stuff to make this raft. So he digs up all of the bodies that he buried and literally makes a raft
and uses them for buoyancy.
Dead bodies. He sets sail. He catches seagulls that are gathering to try to eat the corpses of his crew, and then he, has to just bite into these freaking birds raw. Yeah. And this dude looks, it's sort of, we're seeing him
devolve completely. And actually one thing that I want to quote before we move on to that next page is actually just these two, the newspaper stand guy and then the guy who's delivering I think just a bunch of the stuff to the newsstand. They're talking about this idea of like World War III and they talk about World War II first, and it's like, sure, this war is looking serious, makes a guy start figuring out escape routes. And then they're talking about like, my father, when things deteriorated in the 30s in Germany, he split. And then the other guy says, sure, in World War II, but in World War III, where's there to split to? And I feel like that's something that a lot of us feel like now. Right. That's why
as things escalate.
Not to be crazy, but that's why these billionaires are building all these bunkers and things like that. Because if stuff goes crazy, then it really goes crazy. Right. But anyway.
Yeah. Then we just see, a lot of this stuff is, we don't really need to do, we can try to resist our urge to go panel by panel, but we see Dan and Lori in the diner. Lori's like, well, I don't know where I'm going to stay. And we see this really funny panel of Dan, like trying to get the courage up. Cause obviously he's like in love, he's into Lori. Yeah. Lori's like,
and then she's like, I couldn't impose.
Right. He's like, oh, why don't you come stay with me? You could always come stay with me. Oh, and he gets up the courage. He says it. And then they say there's this nice little line here where he says they're both leftovers. It's like how they feel, Yeah, I couldn't impose. Oh no, it's no imposition. I have a lot of room.
Friends.
We're friends.
We work at we do the same things. It's not even a problem. It's all right.
Yeah. And they do feel like leftovers. Yeah, that's where they feel right now. Lori feels like she barely got to be a superhero. Then she spent her whole young life just being trad wife to
the Dr.
Manhattan.
To apathetic god.
Right. And Dan was being awesome, being Night Owl 2.0, and then had to retire quite young because of the Kinect. He didn't get to he feels like he didn't get to really live his
he's a much more sheepish guy outside of the costume.
Right.
So after we have the meeting, then we jump into a little bit again. We get this actually interesting first person view from Rorschach's point of view of him, like where he lives right now.
He is.
Yeah, and he lives just in he's living in.
We don't know.
Well, it's like. It seems like it's just like not a super nice place.
Somewhere gross.
Somewhere gross.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump over you, but it's like part of what we're meant to read here. I think you're talking about I remember you said something before. I actually noticed when I was editing the previous episode. You said you feel like a lot of Rorschach's pain is self-inflicted.
Yes,
and it's the same thing where it's like he has such this he's like, oh, the world is disgusting. I'm surrounded by filth. Like this city is.
And he's like, I will not move apartments.
Right. Exactly. It's like, bro, you don't need it to be in the worst possible part. And it's like he sort of likes just sitting in the filth also, and then get himself so worked up about how bad everything is, so that then he can put on the mask at nighttime and just beat the shit out of.
And he likes watching. That's the other thing that he ends up doing is I think he goes to this coffee shop and he's just sitting there watching, and he's interesting. He's kind of like making one of his like ink blot types things, but he's just watching.
Yep. The next big plot thing we see is Adrian Veidt. He has his assistant. Hey, sir, come along. We're going down the elevator. They go down into the lobby of his big Veidt tower. And then we get this really cool, this is another look, symmetry. The page of the actual assassination is it's a symmetrical panel of him. This guy pulls out a gun, and we see him. This is the first time we get to see Adrian do some superhero stuff. He leaps into action. He has all these like ancient Egyptian artifacts in the lobby. He grabs one, deflects the bullet, smacks the dude in the face, and then jumps on him and basically pulverizes him.
Pulverizes him. Sadly, his assistant gets shot. And he pulverizes him, and he
doesn't seem that bothered. It's crazy,
right? And this guy ends up taking like a poison capsule to kill himself before Veidt can basically figure out what's going on. And this is like, again, you see like how seriously intense these guys are. Like this dude reaches inside this guy's mouth to try and get the capsule before he swallows it, which is pretty intense.
Then we see Rorschach's getting ready to go back to Moloch again, which is kind of interesting. Not sure why he feels the need to go again, but he's saying it's the restless hour. All his things are where he left them, waiting for me. We see like he has all his Rorschach outfit is hidden in a gross alleyway. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Okay, yeah, here he is. In this relentless world, there's only one sane response to it. The alleyway was cold and desolate. My things were right where I left them, waiting for me. Putting them on, I adorned my disguise and became myself, free from fear or weakness or lust. So this is an interesting thing too with Rorschach. It's being very explicit here. His real.
He feels like his real self is Rorschach, not who he is when the mask is off.
When he takes off the mask, that's him playing pretend.
Yes.
Like he is playing a character of himself. And then he puts on, he doesn't even call it his mask. He calls it his face. Like the Rorschach face is his face, and his mask is when he takes it off and is being the real person.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, he loves this stuff. Like it's like the next panel after that, approach disturbance and attempted rape, mugging both. Cleared throat, the man turned, and there was something rewarding in his eyes. Sometimes the night is generous to me.
Right. He's like, yes, I get to save this person. I get to hurt someone.
That's like the weird thing is that like he in that moment in my opinion, does not care about saving this person. He cares more about punishing the evil guy.
No, you're absolutely right.
Which is so interesting. Yeah. And it's such a, again, like a deep kind of idea into his psyche. And, we're not going to maybe check all the parts of this pirate stuff, but what I will say is that if you have not read this comic, definitely go through this chapter, because I think that some of the stuff that we won't be able to touch on just as deeply in this podcast with that pirate story is just super, super cool. Yeah. But so anyway, we get our next bit here after seeing Rorschach love beating up or going after this guy. We see Dan and Lori. She's arrived at his place. There's a little bit of, like she's like starting to get undressed, whatever else. He goes into his room and he's like,
tension.
Yeah. He says hell and damnation, which is pretty funny. Then we get back to this pirate stuff. And in this pirate story, so this guy is like on this raft, all these human bodies there. He's fighting off the seagulls, and then crazy stuff ends up happening. Sharks are smelling the blood in the water, and they start attacking his raft, and he has to fight against them, which is, I think, analogous maybe to some of the stuff that Rorschach is doing. I think also just how it feels being like a person in the world right now, where you're just constantly fighting against everything that's keeping you from what it is that you want to do. And this is another moment where we're getting this like constant like back and forth between what's going on in the story there and this kid reading this this pirate chapter as well. It's just constantly jumping back and forth, which is really just kind of a fascinating read.
Then our conclusion, again, symmetry. We started the chapter with Rorschach doing a scary home invasion. Now we're going to end it with Rorschach's scary home invasion 2.0. Mm-hmm. Although this time we see right before Rorschach goes, the police get tipped off. We see that they're like, what?
Rorschach?
Rorschach. Yeah. That's a good moment. And we just saw there was shark before, bro.
Yeah, right. Again,
Rorschach.
Everything is coming, back around. And this
it
is
rhymes,
like,
bro. It's also
I wonder if this. So it also makes me wonder if like this is like Rorschach is kind of like the pirate in this situation, and then the sharks are starting to enclose upon him, and that's the police in this. So
you're cooking, bro. That sounds good to me.
Maybe who knows, brother. But we end this with Rorschach coming in.
But so someone tips him off. We can sort of put together who tipped him off later. But yeah, exactly. So Rorschach comes in, and to his surprise,
good evening, Jacoby. and then he looks at him in the face, and there's a bullet hole directly through.
Dun dun dun.
Dun
yeah.
dun dun.
So it's like a perfect framing for the police to assume that Rorschach murdered this guy.
Yep, exactly. So the police are here. They're like, Rorschach, we know you're in there. You can't do anything. And then Rorschach starts. Well, what's interesting is that this is the first time where he kind of like starts freaking out.
He's on the back foot.
He's like, no. I get a frame set up, walked right into it. Stupid. After that, I can't. They're saying we can't make any promises for your safety. Come on. And he's saying basically never surrender. And then he grabs a bunch of stuff inside the house, and he's like, okay.
Yeah, he's being so cool and resourceful.
He's doing like MacGyver type of situation.
Literally grabbing a bunch of random stuff in the kitchen.
For all the young kids listening, go look up MacGyver. It's older than me even, so go look that up.
Facts.
But he basically says, ready when you are. They bust in the door. They're like, where is he? Whatever else. And then Rorschach does this. I mean, this is actually a crazy cool kind of moment. They bust in. There's a bunch of light coming from the outside. Then it kind of goes purple, much darker. And then we get this big burst of color where Rorschach basically takes this kind of like aerosol can with a lighter and just burns the first guy that comes into the house. Right. Runs upstairs. The whole house is now on fire. They're chasing him down. Where is he? Right? They're looking around.
Shoots a dude in the chest with his, not to kill the guy, but shoots, it's like it's like another classic Batman thing where he shoots a dude with a grappling hook. Right. Like probably shattered his rib cage or whatever.
Yeah, then they're like, oh, we've got him in the bedroom. And then these people outside are like, actually, these are the other cops. They're like, what's going on? We must have got him trapped. It's a dead end. He can't get out. And then Rorschach jumps out of the window, basically the back window of this house, falling all the way down. He's like, he hurts himself. He's like, I got to get up. I've been framed. Who's done this? Right. And then they step on him and they grab him. And then the end of this chapter is they're yanking off Rorschach's mask, which is pretty crazy. And we get this kind of like, he looks like terrifying in this. He
looks deranged, bloodied. But yeah, so we see Rorschach's face for the first time, and
then he said, what's crazy about that is we see his face, and he says, when they take the mask off, he says, "No, my face, give it back."
Right. But the big reveal, dun dun dun, is it's the homeless guy.
Yeah, I know.
Rorschach's face. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that earlier when you told me. I thought it, and then I was like, he looks kind of different. But yeah, it is the same dude who was walking around with like the end is nigh. Right. Signs, which is this dude's psyche is like absolutely insane.
So his real persona is now revealed to us. Rorschach walks around the city during the day being a homeless guy carrying a sign ranting and raving about the end of the world. And we see him, you picked up on him too, Antonio. You were like, I wonder who this guy is or if he's going to be like relevant later on.
And maybe he was already relevant. Oh, actually, and that's the thing in the first chapter. That was the thing that I noticed after you said that, is that on page, and for anybody that's reading that wants to go back and look, on 12 and 13, the transition point from 12 to 13 is that we see this, who we see at the time is like this homeless guy listening to the cops being like, oh, there's a murder and whatever else. And then we see him, it's like, oh, they're like, oh, must be a shiver just getting cold. And then it immediately jumps to showing, Rorschach. And we don't know that that's the same person, which is pretty cool to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
Now, so.
There's a lot of stuff like that that's very rewarding when you reread it too.
Yeah.
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? Because I know. And so, yeah, it's all set up brilliantly. It's also at the funeral. Remember, he was pacing back and forth at the funeral. People were like, why isn't Rorschach at the funeral?
But he is.
He was. He just didn't want to be in Rorschach mode because he's paranoid. He thinks people are going to try to kill them at the thing, but he's there just in case, in his disguise, which again is genius. Like it's brilliant because his disguise
is his real self.
His identity, and he's there. He's right there at the funeral of Blake amongst all the closest people to him in his life.
Right, and they have no idea.
They don't even recognize him. They have no idea what.
Absolutely, what a great end of that chapter. And then we get the end of this chapter is, and so this is Tales of the Black Freighter. That's what the heck that comic is called.
Tales of the Black Freighter.
I honestly, at some point, and maybe if you guys are listening to this, put some comments down wherever we have comments, wherever you're listening to this, because I definitely want to have a deeper understanding of what it is like the point of the story. Because this end excerpt in this chapter is kind of talking about the backstory of like the people who, and this is another really interesting thing about the way that this Watchmen book is written. This is like the backstory of the people who wrote the comic that's inside of the comic. And you're like, how many levels of this stuff do we got, man? And it's interesting because they basically talk about how the writer and the illustrator, I think, they like don't get along. I think at a certain point in this.
Oh yeah, interesting. Okay, I actually don't remember. It's been like a week a week or two since I've read this.
Yeah, but it's basically, they talk about how like these two people are like working really well together. They popularized this comic, and then they, despite growing friction between the creatives, they both lasted on Tales of Freighter until the ninth issue, when Orlando asked Schwartz to take him off the book, citing the ego of the writer as a major factor in his decision. And then the guy like disappears in the end. They're like, at the time of writing, Shay's whereabouts are unknown and circumstances as strange as those of any of his stories. He's vanished and has not been seen since. Crazy. But anyway, leave your comments about the pirate stuff. I would love to know what other people's takeaways are. And that is the end of chapter 5, the end of Fearful Symmetry. And we are now on to, Ben and I had to try really hard to not talk about this chapter. Chapter 6, The Abyss Gazes Also. And what a great name to this chapter.
This is the one I was most excited for us to read, most excited for us to discuss. This is one of the coolest chapters, in my opinion. For a lot of reasons. This is just a treat, honestly.
Yeah, this is a treat. And this is also like extra fun for me. You guys don't know this, but Ben knows this. But Ben and I went to school together, but I studied psychology in school. And so like Rorschach stuff and like whatever else are things that have popped up in my studies. And so watching this psychiatrist do this stuff is pretty interesting. But so chapter 6. Chapter 6, The Abyss Gazes Also. This chapter is all about Rorschach's backstory. He's now behind bars. He's being interviewed by this prison psychiatrist named Dr. Malcolm Long. Throughout the sessions that they have together, we get a bunch of Rorschach's origin story. We learn about how his mom was abusive, and they also talk about this particularly traumatic moment that happens to him where he ends up hearing about this kidnapped girl who basically, I think the idea is that people hear the commotion that's going on and nobody goes to save her and whatever else, and she ends up dying. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to it as well too. But
there's also the girl that gets kidnapped and then he has to go look for her.
Oh, that one too. Yeah, you're right. There's kind of like
there's a bunch of different things. We basically,
he's a very traumatic.
We're going to dive into it, but we're going to learn about all of the traumas that made Rorschach, basically.
And that's what he said. He says, when this kidnapping thing happened that Ben was talking about, that's the moment he says that Walter Kovacs, which is Rorschach's name, Walter Kovacs died and Rorschach was born. Meanwhile, Dr. Long, the psychiatrist, is basically, he starts off being like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, don't even worry about it. He's talking to his wife and he's like, it's cool. Don't worry about it. And then Rorschach is just like a demon and just like breaks this dude down over the entirety of the chapter. Outside of the prison, there's a bunch of tensions that are rising, obviously, with the geopolitical state of the world and et cetera. There's a riot brewing. And then also Dan and Laurie, and we'll get into a little bit about what's going on there.
This is sort of the setup chapter for the Dan and Laurie chapter.
Yeah, and I'll try and
we're saving that for
next time.
Episode.
I won't say anything, but they're trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. But so we start this chapter with, wouldn't you believe it, ink blot tests that the psychiatrist is giving him, and we see
I'm so hype right now, dude.
It's super hype.
Such a good.
But so Rorschach, he's like doing the classic thing where it's like, what do you see in this, right? And to everybody that's looking at this, right, they're like, it's supposed to be. This is kind of the thing that like colloquially is like supposed to like look like a butterfly or whatever else, and you're supposed to be like, this is like something nice and like whatever else. And Rorschach immediately looks at it and is like seeing like a dead dog.
Yeah, we see it cuts to a German Shepherd with its head cleaved open. It's graphic.
Yeah, and he says, I see a pretty butterfly.
Yeah, with this like dead expression. Yeah.
Yeah, then we get the Abyss Gazes also, and then we have we get this chapter and
from the notes of Dr. Malcolm Long, October 25th, 1985.
Exactly. But we get this moment right when the title of the chapter comes in. The Abyss Gazes also where Rorschach is looking back at. It shows basically the two of them looking at each other. And the psychiatrist is basically saying, I just wish he wouldn't stare like that. I wish he wouldn't stare at me like that. And so they keep going through trying a bunch of ink blots. And what we end up starting to see is that we
can read some of this stuff too. I think this is worth, like his full name is Walter Joseph Kovacs, born in 1940. Mother's name Sylvia Joanna Kovacs, formerly Sylvia Glick. His father's name is unknown. He's 5'6" and weighs 140 pounds. For his age, he's in excellent physical shape, despite a lot of bruises and lacerations mostly sustained during his arrest.
Police beat on him pretty badly during the strike of 77. He made several inflammatory anti-cop statements, and they've never forgotten.
Right. The cops don't like him.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, finish it up, bro.
The cops don't like him. The underworld doesn't like him. Nobody likes him. I've never met anyone quite so alienated on this earth. How did he get like this?
Boom. How did he get like this? Let's find out.
Yeah. And so what we end up jumping to is one of the first kind of traumatic events in his life, where basically he kind of walks in on his, not even kind of, he fully walks in on his mom, basically starting to have sex with this guy. And what we end up seeing is that I think his mom was definitely a sex worker. And he comes in, and what's interesting, I mean, it's also crazy because it's like one of the quotes that is happening between, even in this sexual exchange here, she's saying, you know, oh yes, oh, you're hurting me, right? And then it kind of goes back and forth, like, oh, you're so fast. And then she's like, you know, saying this, and then kid walks in and he's like, oh, what's going on? You didn't tell me you had no kids. It's my son. It doesn't matter. We don't need to know creeping kids. And then because his mom is obviously trying to get paid through this stuff, she like slaps little Rorschach and is like, you know, you little shit, like, you know, Rorschach's like, I'm sorry, I thought he was hurting you, I was trying to help. And then she's like, you know what, you just cost me, you ugly little bastard. I should have listened to everybody and had the abortion. And she's like, she's like tugging on him, hurting him, all this kind of stuff like that. And this is kind of what he's remembering. So actually, since this is what's kind of interesting is this is kind of what the ink blot tests are like supposed to do, make you think of things and then you talk about whatever.
And that's what we see, right? Except he's not talking about it. We're just lucky as readers we get access to his interior monologue. But yeah, the psychologist holds up this design, and that's what sparks this whole flashback. Is he sees the shape, and we see the shape is immediately reminds him of, you know, this memory of his mom having sex with this guy, and then that little flashback is also bookended by that same image again. We get two panels of that. The other thing that I just want to bring up now that is sort of occurring to me now is, in like, especially if you look at this little picture where the mom is like grabbing him by the shirt and he's crying, dude, he looks like Archie. Do you think this might be Alan Moore doing, like, using this as a weird flip, or like even the Mad Magazine kid? Like when you look at there's these close-ups of him, like him being this sort of like skinny redhead face. I think that was a face that was used in a lot of early comics as like an innocent, like
so
goofy
this is like
character.
The destruction of innocence.
Right. Because Archie is like this little redhead boy, happy-go-lucky, sell them for pennies. And then also Mad Magazine is like a goofy redhead face, kind of like this. That's like a comedy sketch, you know, humor magazine. And this is another sort of like iconic comic book redhead kid.
I bet at the very least there's something there.
Maybe not.
No, I think that is a great, like, because again, that's very much of the time here, which is a great.
We don't even really know. What we know about Archie is that did Riverdale or what's that ever that show was? Yeah, which I didn't even watch that show.
They started giving him superpowers and things like that. It's crazy.
But when this came out, like when this first got published, the readers definitely would be like, they know about Archie. They know what that is.
Yeah, and so we jump back basically to the psychiatrist being like, well, what do you think of this, right? And Rorschach's like, some nice flowers, right? And he's like, great, you know, Walter, I'm very pleased, like this is going to be so great. And Rorschach's like, he just like stares back at him super blank. And then they take him back to his quarters, and we get all the everybody in the jail cells is just saying the most like heinous shit to this dude as he's walking through. And again, you see that the entire underworld hates him.
But again, because he's in the scenario, like the psychologist said, the cops hate him because back in the day, he's like, the cops are worthless. And then the other thing that we're led to believe is this is another Batman analogy where it's like when Batman goes to Arkham is filled with supervillains that Batman has put in there.
Right.
This is like, we can assume a really high percentage of the people that are in jail were, you know, thrown,
done whatever by Rorschach.
Yeah, he beat him up. He threw him at the steps of the police station, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then so we get them all saying this, and then this leads to another Rorschach flashback where he's like this little kid again, back to this kind of like maybe this Archie symbolism. This little like sweet kid in there, like, you know, hey, you know, what are you, like deaf, whatever else? I got to get something from the store. Give me all the money that you have. And then they call his mom a whore, which is probably like whatever. He's probably in New York, but like a New York accent type of thing, which is again like fun writing.
It's like Danny DeVito in Always Sunny.
Yeah. I haven't even seen a lot of that.
Whores.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. And so, but he grabs this stuff and he's basically like, oh, you know, you don't have any place to go to. They shove this. I think he's like, it's like a fruit or like an apple or something, but he shoves this thing in his face, and then you see young Rorschach just gets so upset, and they're talking about, they're like, oh, you've got diseases, you got any diseases, whore son. And then he reaches out and grabs one of these kids cigarettes and basically takes it and puts it out in his eye. and then he jumps on the other guy. I didn't even realize it was the other guy, but he jumps on the other guy and just basically starts grabbing on him and pulling on him, biting on his ear. And then basically, people all around are like, look at that filthy animal kid, get him off.
Yo, that might be a Tyson reference.
Yeah, maybe
well, we're talking about topical stuff. People like biting people's ears off.
Yeah, he's like biting. Yeah, he's like tugging on this dude's face, and then they're like.
And also, to be clear, he's getting bullied by these like teenagers. He's like a kid.
So yeah, he's like a little child. This is a child being bullied by teenagers who like, right. and they're just like, they're doing everything. Yeah, he's taking him on, and they're like, oh, hold his arms. He's like an animal, like a dog. Blame the parents, exactly like a mad dog, right? And then we kind of jump to his face now. And then we get, again, the psychiatrist kind of like reading more about him. And this is kind of the funny moment where like the psychiatrist is like talking to his wife and he's like, we're all good, man. I'm going to figure this out. And she's like, don't get too deep into this. You don't know what's going on. And he's like, don't you worry about it. She's like, yeah, you're the nicest, most positive person I know. That's why you got to look after yourself. I mean, are you sure you're safe with this guy? And he's like, don't worry. Well, he's at, this place. He's heavily guarded, no threat. Let's, it's a beautiful night. Let's see if we can make it last forever. And then we go back into the jail or into the prison, and psychiatrist talking to him, and he's like, sorry, I had a late night, whatever else. But basically they end up start talking, and then this guy basically says, Rorschach says to him, he says, you keep calling me Walter, I don't like you. And he's like, you don't like me? All right, what is it exactly? And he says, fat, wealthy, think you understand pain. Let me tell you something, doctor. I'll tell you about Rorschach. And so this is when we get into Rorschach talking about himself.
Right.
Pretty unbelievable.
Right. And we see it just literally tells us his whole origin story. It's so cool. He was like this delinquent kid. He got like taken away from his prostitute mom and put into some kind of like foster program. They get him a job at a garment facility, and he finds this fabric. He says 1962 special order dress. In new Dr. Manhattan spin-off fabric. It's got viscous liquid between two layers of latex, heat and pressure sensitive. Basically, this person ordered it and they didn't want it, but it really appeals to him. People think it looks ugly, but he says black and white, moving, changing shape, but not mixing. No gray. Mm-hmm. Very, very beautiful. Yep. Which again is like, black, and everything is black and white. He loves it. He hates gray. He does not like nuance. So yeah, he cuts it. This is when he makes his mask. And then it also talks about this woman killed while neighbors.
And that was the one who ordered this dress. And I actually didn't realize they actually use her real name. So,
oh my God, that's amazing. The woman who was killed was the one who ordered the dress. I didn't even put that together.
Yeah. And so just for any of you guys reading this, so this was a funny thing for me that I brought up to Ben earlier, where in psychology, this is something we talk about, and it's complicated because the original reporting on this thing that happened ended up not actually being the case, and there were people who called the police and whatever else. But the idea is that at the time of Alan writing this, the story about this woman in real life, and this is her real name, Kitty Genovese, is that
what was it? Katie Genovese.
Kitty. It might. Let me see. What is it? Realistic? No, it's Kitty Genovese. Yeah. So literally,
This is a moment earlier. To get meta listeners, when I was setting up the mics, Antonio got excited and started telling me about this, and I was like, "Shut up! Tell me this when we have mics."
Yeah, but this absolutely like horrific story. And the way that this was reported originally and how this chapter would have been written about it was basically this story came out of this woman who was attacked and assaulted. And the story at the time was that there were at least like 38 onlookers who did not do anything and did not call the police and whatever else. Eventually, we ended up learning, like in our real world, that was not the case. But for all intents and purposes, at this time, that was the story. That was the story that got. And so Rorschach. We're getting, again, this kind of meta stuff that's happened. Yeah, she was raped, tortured, killed here in New York outside her own apartment building. Almost 40 neighbors heard screaming. Nobody did anything. Nobody called the cops. Some of them even watched. Do you understand? Some of them even watched. I knew what people were then behind all of the evasions, all the self-deception, ashamed for humanity. I went home and took the remains of her unwanted dress and made a face that I could bear to look at in the mirror.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's so... Him being literally birthed from that event, like the Rorschach figure, like that. Now we understand the costume, where it's like, oh, Batman wants to be a bat, Superman is the S for whatever. Yeah. It's like Rorschach is like, this woman got raped in front of 40 witnesses. No one did anything, and I made a mask out of her dress.
Yeah. And I mean, it's
intense.
It's incredibly intense. And I mean, it's also just like, it's such a weird thing about his psyche too. Cause it's like, you would hope that he would like care more about the victims.
It's like what you were saying in the alleyway before when he says sometimes the night is generous. It's like
the night is generous. That's a terrible thing.
The night is generous. Yeah.
That's it's objectively a terrible thing that happened, but he finds it generous because he gets to inflict what he believes as righteousness upon the world. Right.
He's exactly. He's not focused on saving people. He's focused on punishing wrongdoers.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And so we get more back and forth between him
He is vengeance, bro. It's like, again, this is, dude, this probably, influenced I'm blanking on the filmmaker's name, but the Robert Pattinson Batman, the whole thing. Yes. That's sort of his whole, he has sort of a bit of a Rorschach-y arc where it's like realizing that if he's going to be a hero, he can't just be vengeance. He has to inspire hope, not just fear. But Rorschach does never make it that far in the journey. Rorschach never gets to the hope part.
Yeah, no, he does not. And it's interesting, this is like, Rorschach also kind of pokes fun at this this doctor here, where he's basically just like, there's a lot of people that are down there in the prison that are crazier than me, and you don't want to talk to them. You just want to find out what's going on with me. Like, you are messed up in a totally different way than I am. But then, and this is another interesting, like the doctor who was like, haha, I've got this under control. Like, his face is like, throughout this entire chapter, is just changing to like constantly being upset. And he's like saying, what we have here is a classic case of misdirected aggression. Kovacs hated his mother after her death. He needed somewhere to put the anger in, so he chose the criminal fraternity. The flimsy story about Kitty Genovese is obviously there to justify his behavior to himself. It's perfectly simple, case solved. But then he says, you'll find out. I wonder what that meant. Right? Not solved even remotely.
So the next scene, another really cool part. Rorschach is, in the lunch line. Also, this whole time, he is just stony faced. He's not really being very animated. We see, and again, the abyss gazes or whatever. Part of it is like, this gaze, Rorschach's gaze, stony faced visage. Anyways, people are like bullying him in the lunch line. They're saying they're gonna murder him. Oh, you're famous. I want your autograph. And he's about to stab him. He pulls out a, some kind of shiv. And Rorschach reaches across, grabs one of the, boiling things of grease that the people are frying the food in. And we see Rorschach throw this burning oil on the guy who is about to stab him. And then it cuts to our psychiatrist back at home. Antonio, do you want to talk about
yeah, absolutely.
This next page?
We get this kind of like flash forward to the doctor at home. This is again more of this like him kind of like devolving. He's like pouring coffee. It's super late at night. His wife is like, you're never going to sleep with all that coffee inside you. And it's like, oh, hi, Gloria. I wasn't actually planning on sleeping just yet. This Kovacs case, it requires a lot of attention. And then she says, remember last night, Mal, when I required attention? He's like, please, like whatever else. And she's basically just like, she's like, bro, you suck. I'm trying to like have this like actual relationship. I'm trying to connect, have this relationship, have sex with you, whatever else. And you're in here drinking coffee, cooped up about this Rorschach guy. And I'm trying to find where...
This is one of the best quotes. I just found one of my favorite quotes,
I know.
too.
Yeah,
it says right here. So we cut from Rorschach throwing the burning grease, and then he says, the guards intervened, dragging Kovacs away to solitary, and the other guy to the hospital. According to deputy warden, his burns were horrific. Hot cooking fat. I don't like to think about it. As they dragged him away, Rorschach spoke to the other inmates. He said, none of you understand. I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, thank God I was on the same page. But yeah,
it is weird that like that's why I was sort of stumbling, searching for this later, because I was trying to remember how crazy this moment is.
Yeah.
Look, dude, they say that text over a pot of coffee.
Right. Which yeah, that's like so. I mean, that's like, and as far as I know, again, I don't know a lot about this comic in like pop culture ways. Like I know obviously that it exists and that it's important, but that's like one of like the quotes.
I can tell you in the movie, we don't hear a quote. We see Rorschach scream that, and it's awesome.
Incredible. All right. But so the doctor's basically talking about this, and he says, he says, you're locked up in here with me. He said, he's right. He's absolutely right. And so we go back to another day. he's saying, you're masking yourself. You decided to become Rorschach. He said, don't be stupid. I wasn't Rorschach then. I was just Kovacs. Kovacs pretending to be Rorschach. I was very soft. I let these, people that I captured live. I hadn't realized that the stakes we were playing with back then, all of them, most of my friends were soft. And he's the psychiatrist is like, you had friends, right? And he basically talks about how he used to work with all these different people. He doesn't go into depth about talking about kind of any one of them, actually, except the comedian. This is the thing that you were talking about, maybe. No staying power, any of them except the comedian. Met him in 1966. Forceful personality, didn't care if people liked him. Uncompromising, admired that. Of all of us, he understood most about the world, about people, about society, and what's happening to it. Things everyone knows in gut, everything. Things everyone's too scared to. And actually, this is an interesting thing about Rorschach is the way that he talks.
The way he talks.
He said things everyone knows.
He
in
leaves
gut.
out. He leaves out words. Like he sort of says things in bullet points in an interesting way.
Yeah, things everyone too scared to face, too polite to talk about. He understood man's capacity for horrors and never quit. Saw the world's black underbelly and never surrendered. Once a man has seen, he can never turn his back on it. Never pretend it doesn't exist, no matter who orders him to look away. We do not do this thing because it is permitted. We do it because we have to. We do it because we are compelled. And
then that line, him saying we're doing it because we're compelled. We see the shot we see is burning buildings. This is clearly back during the riots. Mm-hmm. You see somebody spray painting on the wall. Who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah, and it's kind of like cut off. Oh, this guy was spray painting it, and Rorschach came and beat his ass.
Beat him almost to death. It looks like before he could finish painting. Who watches the Watchmen? And then you see the newspaper clipping on the ground. The Keene Act passed. Vigilantes are illegal.
And I didn't even see this before, but there's also a sign on the far right that says "Badges, not masks."
Right. So this is when people are really this is when they're protesting. Okay, now we cut to the next. Every beginning of the day with these conversations are framed with the two of them sitting across from each other at the table, which is again another circle back to the abyss gazing back at you or whatever. It's the therapist talking to Rorschach. I can just keep going. Basically, it's from the notes of Dr. Malcolm Long, October 28th, 1998. He says, today he told me everything. And there's just the writing is so good. He's like, hello, Rorschach. How are you doing today? In prison? Yourself? Yep. What's to tell you?
And again, kind of like this doctor is just getting thrown off by this dude every time. He's like, I'm fine.
Because Rorschach is smart. I mean, he's like this weird freakazoid, but he's also like a brilliant detective. Like he's sort of able to throw this guy, put him on the back foot, make him uncomfortable so easily. Yeah, and he starts doing it again where, he shows him the same ink blot that was this one that Rorschach said, the butterfly, but then we kind of got the inside scoop of him seeing this dead dog, and then he sees it again and he says, dog with head split in half. And then the doctor's like, I see, and why do you think of the dog with the split head and whatever else in half? And he says, he says, what do you think split the dog's head in half?
Yeah, and then he just says, I did. Yeah, right. Unbelievable. And so we get this other backstory now where Rorschach is looking for the people who kidnapped that girl that you were talking about earlier.
Right.
And so he's basically going through these back alleys.
It says Blair Roche, 6-year-old. Kidnappers believed she was connected to the Roche chemical fortune. Mm-hmm. Stupid mistake. The father was a bus driver. No money at all.
Yeah, and so he's breaking in, kind of looking through this fence in the back. He sees these two dogs fighting. He said, decided not to use the rear entrance anyway. Went through the front like a respectable visitor. And he goes in.
It's yet another... We keep getting these amazing, like, silent montages of Rorschach investigating. We saw it in... This is the third or fourth time we see it. We see it when he's breaking into Moloch's house. We see it when he's investigating the murder of the comedian in the very first chapter. It's telling us this whole narrative incomplete. There's no text. That's how good the storytelling is.
And
this is the part. Who's the artist? Dave Gibbons. This is a moment where he's popping off. He's popping off. He's carrying the whole narrative, and we're able to see how Rorschach is solving the mystery clue by clue, going through the house, seeing the butcher tools, seeing the butcher block, looking out the window, seeing the dogs fighting over the bones, realization of horror. And then he steps outside to the dogs, and you see in his hand he's holding a meat cleaver.
Right, a meat cleaver, and he looks at the dogs and he raises it. Shock of impact ran along my arm, jet of warmth splattered onto my chest like hot faucet. It was Kovacs who said mother then. Muffled under latex, it was Kovacs who closed his eyes. It was Rorschach who opened them again. So this was one of the moments again that and so this is him talking about seeing the true dark depths of the world. Where again, there was this girl, then he ended up finding out had no connection to this fortune, and they still killed her and fed her to the dogs.
Yeah, they killed her, cut her up, burned her clothes. It's just yet again him realizing like the extents of depravity that humans can do, just like how bad people can really be. Like people really be cutting up little girls on a chopping block.
Yeah,
and him, he just breaks his head. He can't wrap his head around that. Yeah.
According to and then this moment where he basically says that he's coming back. He returns to the dressmakers at 10:40. Dark by then, dark as it gets. He comes back. He's looking around. This guy comes into the house, and this is the guy who would have chopped her up. He comes to the house, and then Rorschach throws the absolutely gored dog through the window. The guy's freaking out. He's like, who is it? Who is it out there? I haven't done anything. Rorschach throws the other dog through a different window. And the dog is like, again, back at this guy.
He likes to psychologically torture the people that he's after. Right. He doesn't just want to arrest them and cuff them. He wants to break them, punish them, freak them out, make them feel panic, all of those things.
He wants them to feel like what he's felt, what probably that little girl felt. Yeah, you think
this is again part of it, right? This is kind of how he treated Moloch. Obviously he didn't do the same thing, but it's like we can see that this is his MO.
Yeah.
It reflects him shoving him in the fridge. You know what I mean? Exactly. From last chapter.
Yeah. And so this guy's like, what do you want? You can't prove anything. I mean, where's the evidence? You can't do anything. And then you can't do anything to me. And then Rorschach's picked up this saw. And this would have been before these Saw movies, but this is kind of like maybe a moment that they even pulled from, right? Where he puts this, I don't know if you would consider this like a bone saw. Probably not. I mean, it's just like a...
Yeah, I forget. My dad would know exactly what it's called. It's when it's a small little bendy saw blade and it's between two things. This is like, real men have this in their garage, bro.
Yeah, whatever it is. But
city boys don't have this.
This is basically Rorschach handcuffs this guy to that radiator thing that he burned the girl in, that this other guy burned the girl in. He puts the saw next to him. He pours gasoline all over the floor. He pours kerosene all over the floor. He says, shouldn't bother trying to saw through the cuffs. You never make it in time. He's like, what do you mean? What am I supposed to? Oh God, Jesus, you have to be kidding me. And he lights the house on fire, basically saying, you can either cut through your arm or burn alive in this fire.
Right. And he knows all the other people in this building are responsible in some way for this little girl's death. And so then we get this monologue again. This is another part.
And he also just watched it from the street. Right. He just watched it burn.
Exactly. He says, he stood in the street, watched it burn. Imagined limbless felt torsos inside, breasts blackening, bellies smoldering, bursting into flame one by one. Watched for an hour. Nobody got out. Stood in the firelight, sweltering, blood-stained on chest like a map of violent new continent. Felt cleansed, felt dark planet turn under my feet, and knew what cats know, what makes them scream like babies in the night. Looked at sky through smoke heavy with human fat, and God was not there. The cold, suffocating dark goes on forever, and we are alone. Live our lives, lacking anything better to do. Devise reason later. Born from oblivion, bear children, hell-bound as ourselves go into oblivion. There is nothing else. Existence is random, has no pattern save what we imagine after staring at it for too long. No meaning save what we choose to impose. Mm-hmm. This rudderless world is not shaped by vague metaphysical forces. It is not God who kills the children, not fate that butchers them, or destiny that feeds them to the dogs. It's us. Only us.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yes. And then finish it. Hold on, you're not done. Finish it.
It's so good. It's such good writing. It's so crazy. It's also like, as he's saying this, as he's corrupting and winning over this guy, he's sort of doing it to us too.
Yeah, he is. Read that last bit.
You finish it, bro. You want to do it?
All right, fine. I'll read. I'm ready. Streets stank of fire. The void breathed hard on my heart. turning its illusions to ice, shattering them, was reborn then, free to scrawl own design in this morally blank world, was Rorschach. Does that answer your questions, Doctor? And then he's taken away, and the Doctor's like, oh my God. Like, he's completely destroyed by this stuff. And then this
it's a classic. I mean, this makes me think of it's a death, another sort of much worse quote, but like, guns don't kill people, people do. Right. It's like all this different stuff. It's like, it is just, I don't know. That philosophy of, we can't put our decision, like, we can't blame God. We can't blame anything else. We can't blame destiny. There's no fate. It goes back to the people who stood by and watched that woman get murdered, right? It's like, all of this, it's just us out here. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. We're the ones doing this. Every bad thing that happens, it's us. We're either doing it, we're onlookers doing nothing, or you can get in the mix and fight it.
And Rorschach says, I'm getting in the mix, and even though he's kind of a terrible person himself. But yeah, you're very right. And it is, I mean, that's something I've thought about recently in the world that we're in too, where it's like, people, there is no depth to human depravity. And that is like Rorschach's, like, that's something that maybe I think, and that's Rorschach's like way of life, is that there's no depth there. And so this last bit of the chapter that we get is the Doctor going with his wife to a dinner with these two people, and basically they end up asking, so Mal, how are things going with this famous masked maniac? Tell us everything. Has he said anything weird or kinky? And then he's like, yeah, he told me about this girl who got kidnapped. His wife's like, maybe we shouldn't talk about this. And then this is also an interesting thing. I don't know if this like really matters, but it's this black couple talking about these two white people. But so, oh boy, was she tied and gagged and left helpless. And it's like, Randy, no, she was 6. Her abductor killed her, butchered her, and fed her to his German shepherds. And then the Doctor's wife gets up and is like, where are you going? And she, walks off. And then, basically this whole dinner falls apart. And
there's people leave. The whole thing, and his marriage is falling apart. Yep, it basically, absolutely. She sort of walks out on him. So like, what we see over the course of the chapter, right, is it keeps jumping back into his home life, and his relationship with his wife is getting progressively worse. He's attending to his own life outside of his work at the prison. Everything's just falling apart. They're not having sex anymore. His wife isn't satisfied. Yep. It also gets wrapped up. This is wrapped up with Rorschach has a lot of weird sexual hang-ups from his mom being a prostitute. He sees sexuality, period, as like bad. That's why he's always like ranting against people having sex. And that's like the other thing he said before, like when he puts on Rorschach, he doesn't feel lust anymore. Right. Whatever, when he puts his face on. So that's also like a weird sub thing of this that I think there's a whole essay to write about the sexual hangups with Rorschach and all that. Yeah,
but so this chapter ends with this Doctor sitting on the bed.
But the thing that I was going to say is we missed the text. It doesn't matter. We'll find another time. But the wife specifically is like berates him about his inability.
She came in wearing her coat, subjected me to a lot of crude sexual insults, went out the front door, slammed.
There you go. Yeah, and there's another moment where she does the same thing, where she's like saying that he can't satisfy her and stuff.
She said, but that's where she says, like, the other night, like, do you remember the other night when I wanted to have sex? And right. We're doing whatever else. But so he sits there, this Doctor sits at the end, he says, I sat on the bed, I looked at the Rorschach blot, I tried to pretend it looked like a spreading tree, shadows pulled beneath it, but it didn't. It looked more like a dead cat I once found, the fat glistening, grubs writhing blindly, swarming over each other, frantically tunneling away from the light. But even that is avoiding the real horror. The horror is this. In the end, it is simply a picture of empty, meaningless blackness. We are alone. There is nothing else. I mean, Rorschach obliterated this dude.
Right.
He didn't even touch him. He just. Right. And then let's see. What's the last quote in this is battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you. And so this also, I mean,
and that's a importantly Friedrich Nietzsche quote.
Yeah, Friedrich Nietzsche.
And again, Nietzsche is the one who wrote the thing about the Ubermensch, the Superman, right?
Oh,
Nietzsche is a part of his whole philosophy is about the Uber. I'm pretty sure the Superman, again, circling back to superheroes.
Right. And this, I mean, but this also just shows, all of these quotes show how well read the
Alan Moore.
Yeah, Alan Moore is, and where a lot of this stuff is coming from. So this chapter ends with that scene, and then we get this kind of like full police report of Walter Joseph Kovac's Rorschach, and basically the whole breakdown of how he ended up getting arrested. And And then they give us this breakdown of obviously his child life. We
it's a New York psychiatric hospital, like a summary of him from when he's a kid. And you can see these are notes of the doctor, Dr. Long. Like it's got coffee, like you can see marks where he put his coffee down on the pages and stuff.
Yeah.
So like this is what he would have. This is like from his desk or whatever.
Right. And then we get this this interesting the end thing is this note that
he wrote as a kid.
Yeah, he wrote as a kid. Basically saying, I have two parents, but I don't actually have any. I used to ask my mom about my dad, but she doesn't talk about him much. My mom told me that she threw my dad out because he was always getting into political arguments with her because he liked Truman and she didn't. I like President Truman the way my dad would have wanted me to. He dropped the atom bomb in Japan and saved millions of lives, which is, I remember being a kid and like the classic thing that you even hear about like World War II. And I think that this is maybe the way that they dumb it down for kids and probably maybe explained it propaganda wise when it originally happened, was like, oh, doing this actually saved lives, because if the war had gone on, then many more people would have died. Right. And so this is what he believes. There would have been a lot more war than there was, and more people would have been killed. I think it was good thing to drop the atomic bomb on Japan. That's all I have to say about my parents.
Which is hilarious. Finish that one more time. Yeah. It's good that we nuked Japan. That's all I have to say about my parents, bro.
What?
That's what this child is like when he's given a homework assignment. Write about your parents. Yeah. He ends up talking about the nukes. This guy.
And then the next thing goes into a little bit of the sexuality thing that you talked about as well, where basically he has this this dream about his mom.
Right, like reoccurring nightmare.
Yeah, this reoccurring nightmare about his mom having sex with this, because it's not even, it's just some guy, right?
I was walking down the hallway, it was dark, I saw what looked like my mom and this guy dancing, old-fashioned dancing at the other end of the room, and they didn't have any clothes on. They were sort of clopping around like a horse in a pantomime, two guys in a suit. When they got nearer, I saw they weren't dancing at all. They were squashed together like Siamese twins, joined at the face and chest and stomach. They didn't have any face that you could see, only their ears on either side of a face. Basically he just describes this like freaky thing that's running towards him.
And then
there's a drawing of it, and it's really fucking scary.
But it's like, he says that they, their hands were growing into age 13. Their hands were growing into each other. They had all four legs free, and they were sort of dancing sideways toward me down the dark hall like a crab. There was something tripping and wrapping around their feet. I looked down and saw it was trousers. They were coming towards me, and then I woke up. I had feelings when I woke, dirty feelings, thoughts and stuff. The dream sort of upset me physically. I couldn't help it. I feel bad just talking about it. Yeah, and he draws this kind of horrifying image.
And so that's when he's 13. This is like implying it's when he's hitting puberty. And his dreams, his early weird sex dreams are so disturbing.
Yeah, and terrifying. So that is the end of chapter 6.
Bro, what a chapter.
What a couple of chapters. But yeah, this one is a true doozy.
There's a lot of stuff I think that, larger themes. We already went pretty deep into some of them, but some of that stuff about like, it's only us, like even rereading it now, we keep talking about parallels to current day and people looking on and whatever, and talking about World War II. And like, one of the things that made me think of is, we always talk about, when Germany was slowly becoming Nazified, like, how did nobody stop it?
Right.
Like, how did people go along with it? How were the normal Germans able to just do Nazi extermination camps?
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of part of what Rorschach is trying to examine. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, we're kind of capable of anything in a bad way. The average person can be, and also people can just be onlookers. Like, people can think, oh, I don't have anything to do with problems. And meanwhile, you're standing on the sidelines as terrible
things happen,
slowly slip in a direction you don't want them to. That feels very relevant for us.
It does feel very relevant.
And obviously that's one of the interesting, like, Alan Moore's characters is it's very Game of Thrones, dude. I bet, Alan Moore and George R. R. Martin have a lot in common, where the characters, the characters are all a crazy combination of good and bad. There aren't just clear cut. Things aren't as black and white as Rorschach wants them to be. And
except for like the comedian.
Yeah.
He's kind of
comedian,
a demon.
Yeah, exactly. The comedian's a demon. But again, the characters say that even, he, in a weird way, is
very strict.
Yeah.
And he's like, has this, his like, I don't know whether or not you say good, but his thing about him is that he like truly understands the evil of the world.
Right.
And does not turn away from it.
Right.
But anyway, what an unbelievable group of chapters here. We hope you guys enjoyed. Let us know what you thought of these chapters.
Yeah, please hit us up.
Yeah.
If it's if you're our homies, hit us up directly. Comment down below, share this, whatever, all this stuff.
All the classic stuff.
This is the point where we start, promoting this a little bit, because I think Antonio and I are
we're having a good time.
We're having a good time.
And we hope you guys are having a good time too.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for another episode of Kickback Comics.
Thank you, brother, for
of course
talking about Watchmen with me, bro.
What a world. We'll see if these next chapters are as depressing. I am 100% sure they will be. But thanks again for everybody for listening.
Yeah, read the next 3 chapters.
Yeah, and we'll join you next
episode.
time. Banger.